Hi everyone, it's Dr. Domingo. I want to welcome you to this video, which is an overview of the dissertation sequence, namely the RESR 694 A through F series of classes. In this video, I'm going to cover a little bit about what happens after you have successfully completed your comprehensive exam. Next, I'll cover specifically some of the components that happen within each of the A through F series of courses, some of the expectations, who are the people you encounter, etc. And finally, some tips for the road ahead. From my dissertation and from the journey of others who have successfully traversed this road, it's going to be a fun journey for you. So here we go. You've passed your comprehensive exam. Congratulations. You're here. You are all ready to go for your dissertation, and you hear this sage piece of advice. The best dissertation is a done dissertation. And I love this picture of the puzzle piece because you finished everything in the coursework part of the program. You have been successful in your comprehensive exam, and all that's left is the dissertation. Well, it's a rite of passage because a dissertation is probably going to be the hardest thing you will undertake here in the program. And so I want to prepare you for this journey. Similar to what Yoda said to Luke in episode 6 of Star Wars in Return of the Jedi, nerd alert, that you are not a Jedi yet, you've done all this great training, but until you face Vader, you can't become a Jedi. So, not saying that Darth Vader is the same as a dissertation, but you're going to go through highs and lows. All this preparation you've done prepare you for this moment, the dissertation, and you're about to begin that journey. So what is it? It's a major research study. You hear these stories about I had to defend, I had to write hundreds of pages, etc. So let me break it down for you. Here at CityU, the dissertation simply is 5 chapters. You can think of each of these chapters as unique. However, there's a big thread that happens throughout all of them. Similar to like the Marvel movies where you have Iron Man way back when, and you have all these different movies, but then there's a big crescendo, a build-up to the final movie that's going to happen. So that's like the dissertation. You have chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, but then each chapter is unique in and of itself. At the same time, they all tie together toward one big thing. Now, chapter 1 typically is your introduction to the dissertation. Like, wow, chapter 1, an introduction is just that? Yes, but there's a lot of components in it, and that's why you're here to learn about those things. Chapter 2 is what's called the literature review, and this is a big survey of the literature, what you know, what you don't know, where the gaps in the literature is. Chapter 3 is about methodology, and methodology is the recipe. It's the research methods that you employed for your study. Chapter 4 is the results or the findings. What did you find? What happened? What was the data? What did the data say? And finally, chapter 5 is the discussion or conclusion. It's the so what question. 5 chapters, all unique, but one thread throughout. Now, let me talk specifically about the sequence of the dissertation, namely the 694 RESR 694 A through F series of courses. First up is talking about the people that are going to help you in this journey. So, very important people here. The most important person in your dissertation journey is, besides you, is your dissertation chair. The most important person. So you've heard the saying, it takes a village to raise a child. Well, it takes a committee to pass a dissertation. So next level is your committee. So your chair will work in concert with the dissertation committee. You have your chair and 2 other members who form your dissertation committee. Okay? In addition to your chair committee, you will have the director of dissertation research. Here at City University, Dr. Mary Dereshevsky is a wonderful person who is the dissertation director and also the lead methodologist for CityU. So especially when it comes to chapter 3 and knowing the nuances of certain approaches to how you research a problem, she's great. So moving along, you have the dean, Dr. Flores, and myself. the program director for the EDD, to help you through this process as well. These are all people, all supportive of your process throughout the dissertation. Finally, you also want a professional editor. And so a professional editor is going to be someone to look at typos, look at spelling. Remember, your work is going to be a scholarly endeavor that is going to be published. And so it's going to be on the research databases. And so you want to be able to ensure that you don't have any typos in that. And especially when you present it to your committee for the final time, has to be, pretty much perfect. Now, I can't forget that you have other faculty, but additionally, you also have your family, your friends, and that supportive community around you. I don't know of anyone who has completed a dissertation without the support of others. And so rely on these people, rely on them, rely on everybody in this list, because you will need them at one point or another throughout this journey. So let's talk a little bit in terms of the specific courses, the 694 series of courses. So you see on this slide that there is 694A, B, C, D, E, and F. What happens in those courses? First thing to know is that once you start in A, think of the dissertation, the entire dissertation, as a running clock. If you're a soccer fan, you know that the ref never stops the time. It keeps on running and then just adds time at the end. Similar analogy here with the dissertation. It keeps on going. So once you start, that clock is ticking. Means you cannot stop. You should be continually enrolled in each of these as you progress. Now, there can be medical emergencies and other things like that, and we understand that, and those are cases that are reviewed on a case-by-case basis, but for the most part, it is a continual clock. So once you start, you're going. All right. Typically, you have milestones in each quarter, and I'll outline those for you. But the overall process is this, and so follow along. You start with 694A. Now, once you get to 694A, your goal is to complete this thing called a prospectus. I'll get into that in a bit, but you're going to finish this thing called a prospectus. Here at CityU, we do a prospectus table. That is the prospectus. You are expected to finish it in A. Okay, and so if you don't, there's a checkpoint. Now, if you don't finish it, you will likely start A again the subsequent quarter until you finish your prospectus. You cannot pass to go to B until you have your completed prospectus. Typically, it's a quarter, sometimes it's 2. But know that if you take A 3 times, you'll be encouraged to consider other programs because you have really 3 times to take a course here. Okay, so A, that's the prospectus. Once you finish that, you go on to this next phase, you register for B, which is the proposal, and you start writing that up and work toward a thing called IRB. You continue on with B, and then you take 694C and subsequent another quarter, which is fine, but you run into another checkpoint. You must, before you go to 694D, complete your proposal and have it approved before you go into D. So similar to the last checkpoint is you'll continue on C until you get an approved proposal to move to D, all right? So you get that approved, you start collecting your data, and then you go to this phase called data collection and analysis. This is where you either interview or you run some sort of parametric statistical test, and you get some results. And so the results could be the interview data, it can be the results of ANOVA, for example, or regression analysis. Anyway, that's what you're doing. You're collecting your data, you're analyzing the data, and you're doing your write-ups, typically in 694D or 694D and E, etc. Similar to the last checkpoint, again, you have another checkpoint in 694E. Now, 694F is the last course in the dissertation process. So you will not be able to go to 694F unless everything is completed by E. That means prospectus, proposal, IRB, data collection, data analysis, final write-up, all that. You must get approval to go to 694F. Okay, and your chair will work with you to get to that process. But know that there's checkpoints along the way. The overall theme is there's checkpoints along the way, and we want you to be successful. So we don't want you just to continue on. A lot of programs just have the student continue on, and they get to the end, and it's like, oh no, I got to keep extending this. No, there's checkpoints, and so we want to make sure you're successful at certain points so that you do finish in a timely manner. All right, so once you have cleared all that and you're ready to go to F, you get the final approval for your final defense. It happens, you defend, you hear these stories of final defense, and finally, you're done. Okay, that's the overall 694 process and the series of courses. I'm going to get into each specific course here next. In 694A, you'll be doing what's known as a prospectus. Here at CityU, we do a prospectus table. Now, the goal of 694A is to, and the goal of the prospectus is to ensure this thing called alignment. And you'll learn about what that word means in a bit, but alignment is important because it's going to set the foundation, just like if you're laying a building. If it's not aligned correctly the first time, when you start building upon it, things are going to be a little sketchy and off. And so that's what we want to ensure that happens in A is alignment through the prospectus table. Again, you're going to be working on this table with your chair to ensure your alignment, getting your topic right. In order to go to B, your prospectus table must be approved by the dissertation director. Okay? And again, if you don't complete the prospectus table by the end of the quarter, you may need to continue 694A again the subsequent quarter. Okay, and so I've listed approvals. All the approvals and the timelines are also listed in the dissertation handbook. So take a look at those. All right, so you go on to B and sometimes even C. The goal by the time you end C is to have a completed chapters 1 to 3, which then you can take to the IRB. And all IRB is the Institutional Review Board of City University. They want to make sure that you are ethical in terms of your subjects. They want to protect your human subjects. Sometimes in other universities, it's called Human Subjects Review. So IRB is that process. It's a committee of faculty throughout the university that are going to look at your study and decide it's good. We can go ahead and proceed with it. Now, the proposal phase, in this phase of the dissertation, is typically going to be the longest phase of the program. It's going to be what's known as having a lot of iterations, which means it's a lot of back and forth and edit this. Your chair looks at it and says, hey, what do you think about this? Look at the committee, look at their comments. They say, edit this, back and forth. And so I remember in my dissertation, I went through about 20 iterations of my proposal. So don't feel discouraged because it's a back and forth process. Know that you're inching forward every step of the way. Again, you must have your approved proposal before you go to 694D, which in 694D and D, you're going to do data collection, analysis, and discussion. So you're going to write up, research concludes, do some write-ups of chapter 4 and 5. The committee members are going to review it and provide feedback. What's important too is when you are in this final phase of the dissertation, you must change your future tense in chapters 1 to 3 to now past tense. So what happens is you can think of IRB as the, now you're finally over the last hump, and now you're on the downslope here when you're doing the data collection analysis because you're actually doing research. You're collecting data. You're taking to you go to the IRB with what's going to happen, and once you've done what happened, you're going to write what happened. So you're going to change anything that happens in future tense in chapters 1 to 3 now to past tense. In addition, 80% of your scholarly references must be within the past 5 years, and we will check that. Okay? You want to aim for a perfectly edited document, so this is where we expect you to use a professional editor as appropriate. APA 6th edition. And finally, you must have the dean's approval in order to move ahead to 694F. Which 694F essentially is any final write-up, tidying things up, and the final defense, and the dissemination plan. I'll get into So the oral defense is a final public presentation of your findings. What did you find out throughout your study? You're going to present similar to presenting at a conference, for example. It's going to be you, the committee, and readers. And sometimes guests, such as the dean or even the provost, may pop in. But guests are welcome only for the presentation part of the defense. Now, once you do that, you have to consider yourself, you are the expert. By the time you get to F, you are the expert of that study. You know the ins and outs, you know the data, you know the write-up, you know the collection process. So you're the expert. So be prepared to answer questions because the other members of the committee and your chair may not know what happened. And so they'll read it, but they want to ask you specific questions of how you did this, what happened. You need to be prepared to answer those. In addition to the defense, you have to submit a written dissemination plan. Now, what does that mean? We'll cover that in detail a little bit later, but dissemination is essentially, now that you've done your dissertation, so what? What are you going to do about it? How are you going to change the world? You're just going to do a brief written plan of, I plan to present these findings at a conference, or I plan to talk about this at my work. I plan to publish this in an academic journal. Whatever it is, we'll help you at that point. But we just don't want the dissertation to be exercised and you're done and it gathers dust on a shelf. This is an applied program, so we want what you found to be of benefit to helping solve an issue that's happening in our world. And so as a result, we believe that it needs to be applied and disseminated out to the world, and the world needs to know how hard you worked and all these different things that you found, because it will make a difference. All right? So that's what happens in the dissertation defense. I want to give you some final tips here as we wrap up. And one of the things that I saw, there's this viral video of this tortoise and hare, and I have a still shot picture of it here. But you have the tortoise and hare classic. The hare jumps out ahead and it's almost done, but then gets distracted. And like, oh no, and then the tortoise is like, that tortoise will never win. Well, you know the story, and just like the fable, the hare slow and steady wins the race. The tortoise slow and steady wins the race. And you could look it up on YouTube or something, but it's a great metaphor for this whole thing, this dissertation journey, because it is a journey. So you want to be able to spend time on it. Something like this doesn't happen without sacrifice. And so sometimes it might be giving up going out to eat. Sometimes it's catching a game. Whatever it is, there is some level of sacrifice for it. And there's a reason why it is always said to be the hardest part of a doctoral program is the dissertation. So I want to prepare you for that, knowing that you made it this far. Don't give up, okay? Scholarly writing is going to be important. It's not an opinion paper. It's not a letter to the editor. It is a scholarly study. So treat it like that. Treat it with respect. Remember to write APA 6th edition. You want to have a good editor. You want this to be of good scholarly merit. All right? You are the one that's going to write, not your chair. Your chair will give you a lot of insight, advice, and varying levels of that. However, your chair is also not your editor. Chair will give you recommendations. The chair will say, I see this, I don't see this. So trust your chair. Again, go back to that slide where I said your chair is the most important person in your journey after you. Trust them, get to know who they are. And by all means, one of the most important things is do not give up. You have invested so much time, so much money, sacrifice up to this point. And so you're at the final phase, which is now the dissertation. So I want you to continue to press on like Dory, just keep swimming, swimming, swimming. All right, and yeah, I had to throw this slide in, but to sum things up, the best dissertation is a done dissertation. Your committee, especially your chair, is the most important person in your life at this point. So treat them as such. We are all here to support you. We're here at CityU to look forward to the day to shake your hand at graduation and say, well done, congratulations, you are Dr. So-and-so. Keep that vision in front of you because there will be times it will be tough. You'll have just apprehensions and hesitations, and I can't go on, but stick it through. It will be well worth it, and we are all here to support you along the way. Final thought for you is this. I love this quote by Emerson, who said, "Do not follow where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path and leave a trail." A dissertation isn't something that you just replicate. A dissertation is your own personal climb up that mountain. It is that personal journey. It is the road that not less traveled, the road none traveled. Only you have traversed this road before. And that's what this journey represents. It is really you. So drive this process. Don't give up. And we look forward to seeing you on that other side. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact me. I'll look forward to seeing you soon.